Okay, chapter 5.3. So we're still multiplying, but now we're focusing on multiplying binomial times another binomial. And we went over three main methods. The first way is known as the FOIL, which is just your horizontal method. How did I spell that wrong? Binomial. 1 second. Alright. So the first way was FOIL. The second was the vertical method, and then the last was the box. Let's start by looking at number 30. We're on page 421, the chapter review, and it says x plus 6 times x plus 2. Well, let's do this this problem using FOIL. So FOIL basically comes down to the following. Each term in the first group must multiply each term in the second group. Each term in the first group must multiply each term in the second group. So x times x times x, plus x times 2, plus 6 times x, plus 6 times 2. So the same as saying x squared plus 2x plus 6x plus 12. And then you must put your like terms together, and you end up with x squared plus 8x plus 12. Great. Let's do number 32. 4x squared minus 2 times x squared minus 3. This time, let's do it the vertical way. So the vertical way says you want to line these up, and usually you're going to put the polynomial with the most terms, right? But both of these are going to be binomial, so really now you're just going for the highest degree. They both have a degree of 2, so it doesn't matter who goes on top. So 4x squared minus 2 times x squared minus 3. And then we're multiplying out to the side. Now make sure you're lining up your like terms, and you start at the far right. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. 4x squared times negative 3 is negative 12x squared. Negative 2 times x squared, well that's negative 2x squared. And make sure you keep lining them up. And then 4x squared times x squared is 4x to the 4th power. And then you get to add. So I get 4x to the 4th minus 14x squared plus 6. Alright, so the first way we did was the FOIL. This is the vertical. And then the last problem we're going to look at is number 39. And it says 5y minus 5y minus 2 whole thing squared. Now before we start this problem, remember that if I have something squared, like for example 4 squared, that is the same as saying 4 times 4, which means a squared is the same as saying a times a. So when I see 5y minus 2 whole thing squared, that is the same as saying 5y minus 2 times 5y minus 2. You cannot do the following. You cannot take this 2 and just what some students like to call the distribute. That is illegal. So you cannot say 25y squared minus 4. Basically square these pieces. The reason you can't do that is because you're missing the middle term. That will be considered wrong. So do not do that. Okay, I'm going to rewrite my problem. That was squared, and all of this was being to the square. Okay, so rewrite it out. And now you want to multiply them. It's still a binomial times a binomial. We did FOIL before. This was vertical, so let's do the box method here. You start by drawing a square. Okay? Look at the first group. How many terms does it have? It has 2. So you're going to have 2 rows. 5y and the negative 2. Great. Now look at the second group. How many terms does it have? It has 2. So you're going to have 2 columns, 5y and negative 2. And now you just multiply. 5y times 5y is 25y squared. 5y times negative 2 is negative 10y. Negative 2 times 5y is negative 10y. And negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. And then you put your like terms together. And you get, what is that mark there? Sorry. You get 25y squared minus 20y plus 4. So for this method, you're taught for this section, you're taught 3 different types of methods. You may choose whichever one makes you you're comfortable with, and just go with it. If you have questions, let me know.